Have you ever had this feeling that you're doing your mental health on a hard setting? And as a psychologist, I work with many people who sit across me and they do everything really that they supposed to be doing. They take their prescribed medication, they attend the therapy, they do their relaxation, they do journaling, they eat good, they maybe even cut down the alcohol. But still, when they speak about how they feel, it seems like they're waddling through molasses. They tell me that they're not supposed to feel this way. They feel incredibly irritable, they feel like they're on edge, or they tell me that they feel flat and the brain is full of cotton wool. In clinical settings, we call this treatment-resistant depression or refractory anxiety. And because recently I have been working with more and more people who have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, this actually prompted me to research into this topic in context of mental health, of course. Because we know that sleep quality can incredibly impact how we feel. And after conducting my own research, in order to create this video, I realized that as mental health professionals, very often we're missing a huge piece of puzzle. So let's get started. Today I'm going to be talking about the obstructive sleep apnea, and sometimes I might refer to it while talking about it as only sleep apnea, just to make it flow better throughout the video. And I'm not going to be talking about it as pulmonologist does, but as a psychological trauma, because that is exactly what it is. And every night when you sleep, when you think that you are resting, your brain is undergoing a series of trauma-like experiences. It is a biological threat that your conscious mind might not be aware of, but your subconscious nerve system is recording it in a real time. And if we don't address this trauma, we cannot expect that the therapy will give you the full effect. We cannot really reason with the brain, which is thinking throughout the night that is dying many times, right? So today we're gonna address the neurobiology of why you still feel tired and depressed, and why your diagnosis might be missing this crucial piece of puzzle. So now, to understand the mental health connection, first of all, we need to understand the chemistry behind the sleep apnea. Sleep apnea happens when the soft tissue collapses in our throat, and this could happen because of gravity, anatomy, or muscle relaxation. So this is a mechanical failure, but it has profound chemical consequences. So now let's have a look at our blood oxygen. The arterial oxygen saturation means the percentage of hemoglobin in our red blood cells that is currently carrying oxygen. In a healthy person, that number stays between 95% to 100%. When you stop breathing, that number begins to drop, and for some people it can drop to 80s or even 70s. To put that into perspective, if a person in a hospital has an oxygen saturation of 88%, alarm starts going off and nurses come running. Our brains have a hardwired alarm system in the brainstem. So when our brains detect this drop of oxygen in our blood, that raises the alarm. So your brain understands that you are suffocating, and this is a primal threat to our survival. In response, this triggers a massive surge of the sympathetic nerve system. That means that our bloodstream is being flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. And then you might ask why. But this is needed so that our heart, our muscles are being triggered enough so that we can regain more control over these muscles in our throat, so we can then gasp for air again. Now think about it. If you sleep throughout the night, but every, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or even, let's say, 1 hour, someone comes into your room and shakes you and wakes you up. And this is exactly what happens when you're experiencing sleep apnea, when your body injects adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormones, into your bloodstream, right? And this actually prevents you from going into the parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest mode. So now, even in the morning when you wake up, first thing, without even having your first cup of coffee, you already feel really anxious. Your palms will be sweaty, you might be shaky, your thoughts might be racing, you might feel like you are on edge. And these all are symptoms of anxiety. And although you might be experiencing some life stresses and you might be experiencing some anxieties, having sleep apnea and going through this state of fighting for your life every night definitely will hugely impact your anxiety throughout the day. So now let's talk about the war in our brain. As psychologists, I talk a lot about the prefrontal cortex here on my channel, and this is the part here at the front. And we could say that this is the CEO of our brain, and it handles executive function, logic. It helps us to regulate our emotions. So for instance, when we are angry, it prevents us from saying things that we will regret later. So now below there is amygdala, so it's more like an internal part of our brain. And again, I talk a lot about amygdala on this channel here. So this is more like an alarm system or the fear center. In a healthy, well-rested brain, the CEO, so the prefrontal cortex, sends signal down to amygdala saying, hey, calm down, that person who cuts us off in the traffic isn't a threat, let it go. So it provides a top-down control. So now it might get a bit complicated, but just hold on with me. I will try to make it as simple as possible. I will try to insert some pictures or graphs here so it's gonna be easier to understand. So the prefrontal cortex is emergency hog. It is the most metabolically expensive part of our brain and can only recharge during the slow wave sleep. And this is the deep sleep where the glymphatic system, and we can think of it as a brain's dishwasher, swishes cerebral spinal fluid through our tissues to clear out metabolic waste and toxins like beta amyloid. So in sleep apnea, people almost never get enough of the slow wave sleep because when they gasp for air, they are constantly being pulled out of this deep sleep into the light sleep. And then as a result of that, our CEO, so the prefrontal cortex, goes offline. It just cannot function. And in situations like that, amygdala takes over. And sometimes we refer to this as amygdala hijacking our brain. So this can be seen in the specific depression where we don't witness only sadness, but when we see people really struggling to regulate their impulses. So it could be the road rage, it could be snapping at people for, I don't know, spilling a milk or something which is very insignificant. So people really would struggle with regulating their emotions. Your top-down control is gone because your brain didn't get the night wash cycle. We see this in research constantly. The less slow wave sleep you get, the more hyperreactive your amygdala becomes. And here you aren't losing your mind, you are just working with the CEO who hasn't slept in years. We also have to talk about our brain's pharmacy. So depression is often linked to serotonin and dopamine, and these chemicals are being synthesized and regulated during specific sleep stages, like for instance REM. REM sleep is when mental processing, memory and dreaming happens, and it is characterized by brain's activity similar to wakefulness. It is the only time when our brain is completely free of anxiety-triggering molecule noradrenaline. During REM, we process memories of the day and strip away the painful emotional charge. Because sleep apnea prevents us from having a restful sleep, that will mean then that people that might be deprived of REM sleep And this can lead to anhedonia, which is a clinical term for when we lose interest in things that we used to love. So if you're deprived of sleep, means you can't process emotions, and then your brain becomes clogged. You stop feeling joy because your dopamine receptors are downregulated by chronic stress. Your brain essentially dims the lights to conserve the energy. So this is where perhaps the misdiagnosis could happen, because when the doctor sees you and when they see you experiencing low mood, feeling flat, not really enjoying anything, feeling demotivated, and even feeling irritable, they can diagnose you with major depressive disorder and then prescribe you the serotonin medication, which is the mainstream medication that is being used to treat depression. But if the reason why your serotonin is low is because your brain is suffocating for 90 seconds multiple times throughout the night, this medication is not going to really solve the issue. So I would like to clear a myth that could prevent you from going and asking for help. So if people, they think that I'm not a middle-aged, overweight man who snores throughout the night, I cannot have sleep apnea. And this is what we call the thin sleep apnea. So in the past, I've worked with younger women and men who aren't overweight, who are fit, but they still are experiencing sleep apnea. So they might have narrow palate, recessed jaw, or enlarged tonsils. So their airways is physically prone to collapse regardless of their weight. These patients often go years being told they just have anxiety or panic disorder. They might even be told that it's all in their head. If you're waking up with dry mouth, if you're experiencing morning headaches, if you're waking up with racing heart, these are all physiological red flags. And if you feel like your temper has changed, or maybe you need to nap throughout the day because you're always exhausted, these are the symptoms that potentially might be good for you to investigate. We have to stop acting as if our mind was separate from our body. Our brains are our organs as well, right? So our brains, they need oxygen, they need a good night's sleep, they need to feel safe at least at the night so they can function well for us during the day. So in our next week video, we're gonna be looking at ways how we can deal with the sleep apnea, and also we're gonna be talking about specific CPAP therapy that acts as a neurological stabilizer. And that will be it for today. If you enjoyed this video, then please like it, subscribe, and also if you think that someone could benefit from watching this video, then please share it with them. And I'm gonna see you in the next one then. Thank you, bye bye.